Hey everybody, this is a clip from the latest episode of the Randi Rhodes Show. If you want the full episode, you can watch live on Free Speech TV. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
What we have alleged in this case is that the president solicited a personal political benefit in exchange for an official act, solicited dirt on a political opponent in exchange for the release of $391 million in military aid, solicited dirt in exchange for a White House meeting. And if this Senate were to say that's acceptable, then precisely as was outlined in that question could take place all across America in the context of the next election and any election. Grants allocated to cities or towns or municipalities across the country. But the president could say, you're not going to get that money, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
Mrs. County Executive, Mrs. Town Supervisor, unless you endorse me for re-election. The president could say that to any governor of our 50 states. That's unacceptable. That cannot be allowed to happen in our democratic republic.
Chuck Rosenberg, it seemed so ludicrous when Hakeem Jeffries made that example of what potentially could happen. And yet, as of yesterday, it has. What's the recourse? What's your take moving forward?
Well, first of all, it's not that hard to predict that the president will be illogical and petulant, Mika. And by the way, I don't know if you can put his tweet back up, but there is a rank inconsistency within it. First, he says that national security is much more important than politics. And in the very next sentence, there's the rank politics, right? In the very next sentence, after talking about the primacy of national security, there comes the threat. If he doesn't get what he wants, a cessation to the lawsuits that have been filed against him and his organizations by New York State, then he's going to exact revenge.
That's what happened today. I told you Donald Trump was extorting New York. That, it didn't seem like a big damn deal to people who don't travel or travel internationally, but the first sign of Donald Trump extorting New York in exchange, okay, quid pro quo, this for that, in exchange for dropping the lawsuits and, any of the investigations against Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani. They're both under criminal investigation. You know that. Rudy Giuliani, the president's lawyer, is under criminal investigation in New York. Donald Trump is under criminal investigation in New York. Donald Trump has already been convicted of fraud in his Trump Foundation charity and has been barred from ever holding any position of trust or honor in a charity. So have his kids, because Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, found that his charity, the Trump Foundation, was fraudulent, right? And so now Trump is fully extorting the city of New York, the state of New York. Governor Andrew Cuomo is set to meet the president today in the White House. And Donald Trump tweeted at him last night that he must understand, the governor of New York must understand that national security far exceeds politics. And that was, fine, until he said in the next sentence that New York must stop all of its lawsuits and harassment against him and start cleaning itself up and lowering taxes. His invocation of lawsuits and harassments is a reference to the state. Not the governor doesn't bring these lawsuits, by the way. The U.S. Attorney and the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, does, and so he's not even cogent of how lawsuits originate in the state of New York. But that said, he is threatening New York with God knows everything if they don't drop the lawsuits against him, the lawsuits against Rudy Giuliani. I mean, this is some sick thing. And this goes right back to what Hakeem Jeffries said on the floor of the House when he was arguing why the president had to be held accountable for extortion of Ukraine. Because if he felt that he got away with it, the way he felt that he got away with Russia's meddling and benefiting from Russia's meddling and encouraging Russia's meddling and, disseminating the stolen, hacked materials that the Russian military intelligence outfits had gotten by hacking the DNC, then he would be emboldened to start holding back, and I don't know why it escaped them, disaster relief for, let's say commonwealths or localities, or if the governor or if the city manager or if the mayor or if the town didn't endorse him, he would hold them hostage. And that's exactly what he's doing in New York, okay? So this is why it's so important that you remember the arguments that were made. Now, Schiff made the same argument.
Now, are we really ready to accept the position that this president or the next can withhold hundreds of millions of dollars in military aid to an ally at war unless they get help in their reelection? Would we say that you could, as president, withhold disaster relief from a governor unless that governor got his attorney general to investigate the president's political rival? That, to me, is the most dangerous argument of all. It's a danger to have a president who engage in this conduct. It's a danger to have a trial with no witnesses and set that precedent. But the biggest danger of all, I think, would be to accept the idea that a president can abuse his office in this way, and the Congress is powerless to do anything about it. That is certainly not what the founders intended.
No, it is not what the founders intended at all. Donald Trump was exactly what the founders were afraid of. Somebody who would, be purchasable, would be for sale, somebody who would be, willing to do illegal things at the behest of, foreign intervention or big money or any of those things. And that is exactly what's happening here.
Before a meeting with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo yesterday, President Trump put out a tweet that appeared to link his administration's decision to freeze New York's access to the Trusted Traveler program with a demand that the state drop a myriad of lawsuits against him and his administration. He's just doing it in plain sight. Why not, right? He wrote this: I'm seeing Governor Cuomo today at the White House, and he must understand that national security far exceeds politics.
So,
New York must stop all of its unnecessary lawsuits and harassment, start cleaning itself up, and lowering taxes. Yeah. New York's Attorney General Letitia James has issued a subpoena for Trump's financial records and has filed a number of lawsuits against the Trump administration and the Trump Organization. She responded to the president's tweet, writing, "When you stop violating the rights and liberties of all New Yorkers, we will stand down. Until then, we have a duty and responsibility to defend the Constitution and the rule of law. By the way, I filed the lawsuits, not the governor."
He's an idiot, is what it is. And he is spiteful and vengeful and evil and bad. He's just a bad person, and I can't say that often enough. But that is exactly why he needed to be held accountable for what he did. And now that they've excused what he did by saying things like, I think he's learned his lesson. The lesson he learned is he can do whatever he wants, obviously. And now he's extorting various, states. He's going to extort California. He's extorting New York State. He is going to withhold disaster relief for any blue state that doesn't vote for him. That's because he's a bad, bad man. And that's because everyone around him that's remaining in the White House are a bunch of thugs. So, Gerald Nadler tweeted, "Dear at Senate GOP, this is what another quid pro quo by the President of the United States looks like." Donald Trump was fined $2 million by New York City